Matt, welcome to the Creative Gap podcast. It's good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Since it is the new year, I feel like it's only right to start off by asking, how do you how do you plan your goals for the year? I think for me, I have changed a little bit and have evolved the way that I do them every year. And I'm curious for you, do you set goals like January 1st? This is the day that I lock in, I write down my goals. What is that process for you?
I'm a big like list person. So
Mm.
I use like cue cards and I didn't do it for this year just because things have been a bit hectic for me, but I usually just write down on a cue card like the things that I want to achieve. And also think it's important with goals, like instead of just writing like, I want to hit X amount of subscribers, like to write actually the process it takes to get there. So for example, like last year it was shoot a short film. And so I wrote that and then I wrote a line and I was like, write a script and then, reach out to people. So I like to like break it down into those steps.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I have the goal itself and then action items underneath it to kind of help me through the process of it, especially, throughout the year if I might be losing track. It's always good to go back to and be like, okay, at this beginning point when I had this idea, these were the steps that were in my head were going to get me to that place.
Exactly. Totally.
Mm.
Do you use like a certain app or anything, or are you just like,
I use just Google Docs. I have like a little template that I've sort of built and evolved over the last couple years to kind of fine tune my process a little bit and what I like. Um, but honestly, just Google Docs is the best way for me. And then I have two documents actually. The first one is more of the like standard goal setting thing. I have like a section that's daily goals, weekly goals, like interpersonal goals. So like that's more things that I want to accomplish for myself, like character wise. Like I want to be more confident, things along those lines. I have career goals, and then I have like milestone goals, big dream type goals. And then under those, I have like one or two little action items for each. And then the second document is my 1 to 2 goals that I really want to focus on per year. And that's a whole document, one page dedicated per one goal. And it has um, the date created, the date I want to achieve it, the goal itself, a little paragraph summarizing why I want to accomplish this goal, like what it means to me, action steps to be able to accomplish it. And then underneath that, it is what would be the result of accomplishing that goal at the end of that term.
mm,
So that's sort of how I've evolved into my goal setting sort of routine. One thing I was really curious about talking to you with is your decision to really dedicate yourself to YouTube. I think that's something that I have been half on the fence about for the last 3 years, maybe, and have yet to fully commit to doing YouTube. I don't know if it's out of fear. I don't know if it's out of just like, do I really want to do that? Like, walk me through your whole process from really committing because you jumped in like big time. I think this year, if I remember correctly, this was like the biggest year for you jumping in.
totally, totally. I see like filmmaking and just everything heading in the direction of like being on social media. Um, like even celebrities that are like making films and directors, they're coming to YouTube because the barrier to entry is so low. Like you can upload a video and potentially reach thousands of people. So it's like, why wouldn't you do that? Um, and it's also great to, build an audience for yourself and have people invested into your work. Um, I have to give flowers to honestly like you and Danny for like really inspiring me to make a YouTube channel and seeing what he did with his channel. I think he really like
Yeah, absolutely.
opened the doors of like what is possible with being an online creator. So that was a huge part of like, seeing that and being inspired by that. And I'm like, okay, I know this is like the future of filmmaking now.
I completely agree. I think that fortunately, having knowing him personally and working with him, he's definitely opened a lot of doors for a lot of people, and especially in the YouTube space, to see what was once sort of like this invisible path that wasn't really a thing before, and now is a thing, and I see it firsthand, especially with what you did on your short film, which we're going to get into a little bit. Um, but when it comes to YouTube, most people, I feel like, struggle with the consistency, the ability to stay long term because it doesn't necessarily reap the rewards initially. And I think it requires a certain level of patience and persistence. Has that been a similar experience for you when you first started to kind of where you are now? Like, how have you evolved your level of patience to be able to continue this journey in YouTube?
Dude, I started posting on YouTube, like, I remember, seeing your channel as well when you had, like, maybe 1,000
Yeah.
subscribers as well. I've
Yeah.
been I've been going at YouTube for, like, 5 years inconsistently, and then the last maybe, like, 1.5 to 2 years, I was like, "Okay, I need to take this more seriously." Um, and the consistency part is the thing that I actually struggle with the most, and I think I'm, like, the worst at. But it's finding, like, a process that works for you. In the summer, I tried to go up to 2 videos a week, and, like, I was like, "This is not sustainable for me." Yeah,
How long did you do
totally.
that for?
I did it for a month, and I was like, "Okay, I can
Yeah.
feel myself just starting to burn out, and I'm not gonna do this."
Mm.
So I try to do 1 a week. There's some weeks where, life gets in the way. You have things that you don't have control over, so I miss some weeks. Um, but having a process where it's like, okay, on Monday I'm gonna record my video, and then Tuesday, Wednesday I'm gonna edit it, and then have it ready for Thursday or something like that. Just giving yourself a little bit of like a schedule to work off.
And how has that schedule has it evolved over the last couple years? Um, and I guess it is really more specifically like the type of video that you're making. How do you kind of plan for certain videos? And this is honestly just me talking because I'm curious about a process because I don't really have a YouTube process, to be honest with you. Even after 5 years of doing it, I I suck at YouTube, to be honest with you. I really don't know what it is for me and like what my process is. And I don't, yeah, it's really difficult for me right now still.
Well, like what I really like about what you're doing is I think you build a deep connection with your audience by just having like, when I go to your videos, they kind of feel like a therapy session, even for the
Yeah.
viewer, because it's like
Yeah.
it feels like I'm just sitting across from a friend and they're telling me about their life and their career. And I think that's really important to build an audience. Like you don't need crazy, flashy, all this kind of stuff to have people care about what you're doing. In the past, I would like come up with an idea, and now I think I have a list in my phone of just YouTube titles where I'm like I try to
That's
like
nice.
reverse engineer the YouTube title. I don't know if you watch Colin and Samir. They break things
Hmm.
down into very like palatable processes. So I try to like think of a title, and I'm like, okay, what's the idea here? And that's sort of like where I'm at now. Whereas before I was like, okay, I have this idea for a video, but like I don't know what the title is going to be. Um, I try to think like that now. I don't know.
Yeah. I probably have to try it because I usually am the opposite, where the title is literally me thinking about it as I'm posting it on YouTube. Yeah, it's not great. It's probably not the best. Same thing with the thumbnail. I horrible with thumbnails.
Ugh, I
Um,
hate making thumbnails.
yeah, there's some people that are just so good at thumbnails. I Do you do the whole AB thing on YouTube, like AB title, AB thumbnail thing?
Yeah, the past like since they came out with that feature, I've been using it
Yeah.
like religiously.
Mm.
Have you messed around with it?
I have a little bit. I don't know if I've really found like a huge value in it yet. I'm gonna keep. I mean, if it's something that they are, I think I realized something that same thing with Instagram and YouTube. If it's a new feature, try to utilize it early because I
Yes,
think they'll
yes.
try to push you a little bit more if you're utilizing their new
Yeah.
feature, whatever that is.
These platforms love when you use their new features. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna
Yeah.
push you extra hard now."
Yeah, for sure. I just picture some guy or some girl in like the development room. They're like, "Oh, they're using my idea. Let's push that." I don't know, something like that. How did you really make the shift from? Do you still work in the traditional setting still often or no?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's primarily my, bread and butter and my income, but it's kind of doing like a
Mm,
mixed bag of things as for last year.
Do you think that you have shifted? This is something that I've struggled with a little bit mentally. And I think the fact that you made this short film, I'm not sure it has answered this question for you, but because I know that DPing has primarily been like a big your thing. Have you always had a sort of like itch in the back of your head to want to direct and write at all? But like fought that a little bit?
It wasn't a thing where I was necessarily like had an itch. It actually came from like, this sounds kind of bad, but just like not wanting to wait for people, you know, because I
Mhm.
felt like as a DP, I was like, I need to wait for that a director to reach out to me to shoot their thing. And, you know, as a kid, and I'm sure you can resonate with this as well, but like you would just like go out and make things.
Mhm.
And it came down to like I put a lot of weight into these titles of like directing and DPing. And I was like, okay, like I have this idea. I really just want to like execute it. I don't, you know, care about these titles and stuff. Like if the title for this thing is going to be director, sure. Um, but it really just came down to like being stoked on an idea and wanting to execute it. And I guess now I'm a director. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
dude. I think
Yeah.
identity is like one of the biggest things that I thought about this past year, especially when it came to like who I believed I was, or like how much weight I put into something. And I don't think it necessarily only has to do with social media. And I talk about this a lot with some other people, like outside of film and just, on the podcast is like, how much of an identity do you put in your job title, like as a DP? And I feel like for a lot of people, most people, who they are is that thing. And they don't have a life outside of being a DP. They don't have a personality outside of it. And all we do is think about doing that thing, that job, that thing. And it's hard sometimes when you're not doing that thing to actually feel a sense of purpose. And I feel like it has some similarities there because, for years, my focus and priority has been on growing as a DP and like really honing my craft. But over the last couple years, I've really made it a priority to separate myself from Carlo the DP, from Carlo the person at home that has a wife, that has a dog, that loves fitness, that loves to podcast, that also loves to, create things, want to start a business. Like there's so many versions of Carlo. And I think that the more that I limited myself to being just a DP, the less I was actually willing to create outwardly. And I know that was a
Totally.
long way to get around to that, but I do completely agree with what you're saying that identity and sort of like those labels, I think hinder a lot of us from actually
Totally.
fulfilling like a true purpose for ourselves.
Totally. And I'm so guilty of that as well, like tying a lot of my self-worth into you know, creating things and being consistent and titles. I'm still trying to work on that myself. Yeah, I'm definitely like super guilty of that.
I hope that a lot of people can start to I think it's shifting a little bit. And a lot of the conversations I'm having, especially on the podcast, um, it's a common theme with people that are at like the top of their level, like, big time DPs, big time filmmakers that are working at crazy levels. They also, feel that sort of tug and pull of where their identity lays. And I think it's a difficult thing to balance, especially where you are in your career. Because if you're starting out, you're obviously super hungry, you're ambitious, you want to grow, you want to, you know, make your life about whatever that thing is, which I think is valuable and I think is really important. But I also think it's really important to make sure that you have room for another version of yourself somewhere,
Totally.
another type of version of you that could also feel a sense of purpose and feel a sense of life outside of that career, that job, you know?
Totally. Totally. Yeah, I think you're allowed to be more than one thing. Like you're not just Carlo the DP or Matt the filmmaker. It's like that's why even on my Instagram I've been experimenting with like sharing, you know, I make pizzas and I'm like sharing that on my Instagram, and it's like, why not? Like that's a part of like
Yeah.
me and I guess my personal brand. So
That's that was me this summer, literally posting me cutting my lawn once a week.
yeah.
It
And you said you got
I
like a ton of love, right?
yeah, people loved seeing the green stripe, dude. The thing about me though sometimes is like I have hobbies. Obviously, like cutting my lawn is a huge passion of mine, and like lawn care because I was a landscaper before I was in film. My problem is like, oh, maybe I should start an Instagram page for lawn care. I was like, no, dude, just like chill out and just cut your lawn, man.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
I get like that too.
Yeah, I found a lot more joy and I hate saying the word peace because like I feel like peace is something that I'm continually evolving and like trying to find more in my life. Like I haven't found peace, but I'm finding it. And I think the more that I've allowed myself to open up myself to people and open myself to the world and just like be me, the more that I have felt a bit freer in what I'm able to do with my life, what I'm able to create, what I'm able to share, in person and online. I think sometimes filmmaking has this very like strict sort of rule of like you are a grip, and for you to not be a grip anymore, you have to go through hoops and hurdles to then become a gaffer, a key grip, and then for you to be
Totally.
a DP. Yet, I think that's you've talked about this a lot, like that sort of
Totally.
transition.
Because I've really struggled with that. Because I did like 6 years of working in lighting, and when I first started film, I was told like, you have to work your way up. Like this was pre Instagram and pre YouTube, like that sort of stuff. So I was like, okay, like at the time, a mentor of mine, he was like, the best DPs come up through the lighting department. Like don't come up through camera. You want to learn how to
Mm.
light properly because that's what DPing is. So I was like, okay. Then I started working as a spark. I got in with like an amazing crew on commercial film sets, um, and I learned like so much. But always in the back of my mind, I was like, well, I want to actually be DPing, and I was DPing on the side, trying to meet with directors and stuff like that. And I felt like I was just like waiting for somebody to hand me that thing where it's like, okay, you are a DP now, and it's like
Mm.
that moment never comes.
No.
And it was learning how to like, how do I like get out of this and do the thing that I actually want to be doing and the reason why I started this in the first place. So last year I was like, in 2025, I was like, okay, I'm quitting cold turkey, sparking jobs, and I'm just gonna figure out like how to break into the industry and actually start DPing. And that came through like going out and just creating projects and trying to create this like snowball effect of putting out work and people being like, oh, he's working as a DP or a director. Like that's what he is. It's an image thing. It's not like that
Yes.
formal piece of paper or anything like that. It was a big mental battle.
For me, the way that I like to explain it to people is you have to sort of reintroduce yourself to people. And because I think people have this sort of preconceived idea of who you are, the job that you did for them, with them, and that is how they remember you most of the time. And I'm guilty of that as well for a lot of the people that I've worked with. Like, for example, the second AC that I've worked with for a couple years now, she's starting to do mostly first AC work, but I still in my head think of her as a second AC. And recently she's coming up on something for me as a first AC, but it took her to like really say that she's doing first AC work for me to be like, okay, for a long time she was this, but she's now transitioning into that. My role as a DP, respect that and help her and guide her through this next phase of her journey.
Totally.
But it does have to do with this sort of reintroduction of yourself to people.
Totally. You have to like reinvent yourself in a way. And that's like good on you for willing to, take the chance on her. She's probably more than capable to first AC, but it's like you have that image of no, she's the second AC. Um, I'll never forget like one time I hit it off with this director, and I hadn't worked with him yet. And this is when I was still working as a Spark. And then I got asked to do a job by a gaffer friend of mine. I was like, sure. And I show up on set and like he's the director. And I'm like, ah, fuck, like I've ruined my
Yeah.
chance with working with him, you know? Because now he views me as that thing. But
And was
it,
that true?
I mean, I haven't worked with him, but it's like we're homies. We're still friends, and
Mm.
I'm sure like one day, hopefully, we get the chance to work together. But it's hard because you get pigeonholed.
Yes. Yeah. And I think the other difficult thing too, I have this conversation a lot with some of my close crew members that I work with in Philly. Like a lot of them want to transition out of G&E into something else. But one of the most difficult things is the fact that when you work G&E and you're in with a good crew, you are very busy usually. You're working a lot. And if you're working a lot in G&E, you can make really good money doing that. And you could have a good, financial stability there. But when you want to transition to something else, it really takes I don't want to just say courage, but it takes a lot of risk. It takes courage. It takes overcoming a lot of fear to just say no to that work that you've been getting and that you're going to get to then move into something that you don't know if you're going to get hired for. It's such a it's such a difficult thing to actually commit to, especially if you're in a stage of your life where you have a family, you have kids, you have a lot of overhead, a lot of bills. That transition is very, very difficult for people.
Totally. And I remember distinctively last year when I stopped taking lighting jobs, and a gaffer texted me, and he was like, "Hey, are you available this day? Like, are you still doing lighting?" And I'm like, I remember staring at my phone and being like, okay, this is like the make or break situation. I say yes, and I, go down the comfy
Continue.
path, or I say no, and I'm like, I try to figure this thing out. And from that
Mm,
moment, I said no, and we're still here. So I guess it's
yeah,
going okay.
I feel like that's something too is like, not for everyone and not for every circumstance, but a lot of the times the worst thing that we fear isn't actually going to break us. We, as humans, most of us are very intuitive. We're able to figure things out. And I think, I don't want to say a lot of people don't give themselves enough credit for that, but I think maybe people have never given themselves an opportunity to really see what they're made of and what they're capable of. And I really hope that people can find that within themselves to find what they want to do, what they love, and see what they are truly capable of doing in their life. I think that's a beautiful thing when people do that, and it's not easy.
Totally. It took me cutting the parachute and saying like, I'm just gonna fall until the next thing catches me. And
Yeah.
then I was like, okay, that means like going extra hard on YouTube and creating those projects that I've really been wanting to create. And I wrote like a digital product, an ebook about this. And the three things that I wrote about to actually make this jump happen for people that do want to make the jump is creating passion projects and work to recreate that image of yourself of being a working filmmaker and networking with people. Like those are the two things that you have to do.
I think networking is one of the touchy subjects for a lot of people. They don't know how to do it. How do you even do it without it feeling icky? How do you feel it without like you're pushing or like you're asking for something? How have you found to be a reasonable way for you to kind of the way I like to say, like, build relationships rather than, networking really, because you are trying to build relationships. You're not necessarily networking only for the sake of you trying to get that next job. And if that's the case, then I think you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Totally. I think you could smell from a mile away when somebody is reaching out to you for like a transactional purchase, a transactional
Mm,
reason, versus like if you reach out to people with the intention of like, I want to be your friend first before a collaborator, that's where you'll like find the most success in relationships in film, in my opinion. Like some of my friends in film, it started with me reaching out or them reaching out and us grabbing coffee and lunch and dinner and going to movies and stuff like that. You're looking to make friends, not just be a transactional person. My film
Yeah.
school teacher told me, he said it's not filmmaking, it's friend making.
Yeah, that's nice. It's
Yeah, and I
true.
was like, it's all relationships. This industry, like you're just trying to be friends with people and work with homies on set. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah, I think some of my closest I've had some, like, relationships that felt pretty transactional, and I think that's natural. I think that's inevitable in this industry to have some like, you can't be friends with everybody, but the close few people that I tend to work with a lot are the people that I will text regularly. I will call regularly. I will talk to them on the phone for 2 hours on a drive home because we wanna talk about something, not related to
totally,
film, but just life in general. And it doesn't have to be 50 people or 30, 20 people. It could be 5, 3 close friends. I think that's really something that people misunderstand too, is you don't need to have a room full of friends. You just need a
totally, totally.
close-knit group.
And the same
Mm.
thing with like finding your people in film. Like exactly what you said. Like you just need one or two people. That's all it is.
So you mentioned mentoring before you had a mentor. What was that relationship like, and how did you find that mentor? How did they find you, and what did you get out of that relationship?
I've had sort of I want to say maybe like two mentors. It wasn't like I called them my mentor. It was just like somebody I would go to and say like, "Hey, this is where I'm at in my career. Like they're a few years ahead of me in their career, so they can answer questions for me." Um like even this studio, I don't know if you know Daniel Schiffer. He posts on YouTube as
Yeah,
well.
for sure.
I grew up with him and he's been my mentor for like years, you know. It's just like having a good friend that you can say like, "Hey, this is the problem I'm facing in my career. What do you think is the best way to get through it?" That's sort of like what a mentor is to me. Have you had anyone that's sort of like you view as your mentor kind of thing?
Yeah, I think the most obvious for most people that know me is Danny. He was when he was starting at YouTube, I think he was at like 20,000 subs or something, which, looking at where he is now, it was the beginning stages of his journey. He's never had a mentee or intern before he started doing this. And I was his first one, and I was working with him all the time. And he taught me everything about cinematography. He taught me everything about, uh, you know, talking to directors, talking to clients, the balance between traditional filmmaking versus YouTube creation. Um, and 5 years later now, Danny is one of my closest. He's a very, very close friend of mine, who you know I ask for advice all the time. I still shoot some of his projects now, which is a really nice full circle moment, especially
Mm,
as he started to pursue directing more. Um, I've also had, in a less formal sense, the reason why I've talked about this on the podcast before. The reason why I started this podcast was because when I was working like on different sets as a DP, most of the time I tended to be one of the younger people on set. And my gaffers, my key grips, ACs even, were older. They had husbands or wives, they were parents. They've been in the industry 10, 15 years. And just being surrounded by those people on a 10-hour day, a couple times a year, whatever, they taught me so much about just life. And seeing them at lunch talking to their, FaceTiming their kid for 5 minutes, 15 minutes, just to see them in midday or whatever it is. That was part of the reason why I started this podcast, was because I learned so much from these people that I wanted to be able to create a place where I could talk to people, to hopefully be able to gain insights from people all over the world, to hopefully share with everybody else. That was sort of the main gist of the podcast. And I think I have a lot of loose mentors that I really look up to. And last year I got accepted to the ASC, um,
nice, man.
vision mentorship program, which is cool. Um, so my mentor is Sydney Siddell. He's really, really nice guy. But it is what you make out, it's what you make of it, you know. If you
Totally.
don't email, call, text, or whatever, it's not going to really do anything. So
Exactly.
you got to
Exactly.
kind of you got to put in the work too with you know,
Yeah.
mentors and people that you are looking up to. You got to put in the work a little bit, you know.
Totally. Totally. Have you seen like fruit from that? Like, what have you taken away so far?
I had a really good meeting with him. One of the first calls I had was like 2.5 hours long, and he just told me a little bit about his story, his journey, and um, the fact that some of the same feelings that I have and that I feel about the industry, about the inconsistency of the career, um, uh, the relationship with the director, the creative control, like all things that, you know, a lot of DPs feel, regardless of what level you're at, he feels and has felt over the years. And I think a lot of it, I don't want to say validated my own thoughts, but it created a sense of relatability between him and I. You know, somebody that is really high up, you know, an ASC DP, you know, compared to me. I think there was some relatability. And I also have a short film that I'm doing coming up where I had a lot of concerns about it before going into it. And I messaged him about some of my red flags that I were seeing, and he helped me kind of walk through them a little bit and um, sort of help me determine if they were truly red flags or if they were just red flags based on my inexperience of not seeing this thing yet.
Right.
So yeah, he's helped me a lot in
Interesting.
that sense. I want to sort of transition a little bit into this absolute banger of a short film that you made. Get up and try again, dude. It's like really, 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 really good. You should
Thank
be
you.
very proud of this short film, man.
Thank you,
I
dude.
remember watching it, and even though I didn't have the skating experience that a lot of people did, like I was more into BMX. I had that. I felt what you were going for in there of
Right.
trying
Right.
something, failing, 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 and then accomplishing it. And I think you delivered on a really valuable message. I think the way that you
Thank you.
delivered it visually, aesthetically, in the time period that you were shooting it, um, you really cared about every detail. So, like, really
Thanks.
fantastic job on this.
Thank you. You can kind of view it as like, because I know you work out, like bench pressing 225 for the first time. You know, it's
Yeah.
like that probably took you however long, but it's like because with kick flips, that's what separates the people that like stick with skateboarding and like give up. That's the trick where it's like that's the barrier to entry to like get to that next level kind of thing, if that makes sense.
No, 100%. When I was in college, I only went for a year and a half, but my roommate was big into skating, and he had a skateboard in his room, and like I would try to just ollie all the time, could never do it, and then somehow eventually my Vans, I got like a hole in the side of my foot on my Vans. I was like, I feel like a real skater right now. I feel pretty badass. I still couldn't do anything else, and then I gave up.
Hilarious.
But yeah, tell me about this process of making it, because I think a lot of people have the dreams and aspirations to make a film, a short film or a feature, but never get to the point of actually doing it. What was that deciding factor to be like, okay, I have this idea, I'm going to take action on it and actually make it?
Um, a lot of it came down to like wanting to transition in my career. The year where I said like I'm not doing lighting anymore. I need to figure this out. I need to build my portfolio and stuff like that. So I had this idea. I've had it for like 2 years. I was like, okay, I know this is a good idea for a short film. Um, so I created a deck and then I sent it to like a few producers, friends of mine, and they're like, I'm sorry, I'm too busy. And then I sent it to a smaller production company in Toronto, and they're like, dude, this is sick. We're really interested. Let's do it. I was gonna self-fund it myself, but I just needed somebody to help me with like getting the film off of the ground.
Mm.
So we hopped on a call and they're like, okay, like how much do you want to put into this film? I was like 5K realistically. I've self-funded like all of my passion projects, so I know that that number is likely going to increase. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, like top is 5K. So we had that initial kickoff, and then we have another call. He's like, Matt, this short film's not going to cost 5K. It's realistically going to cost between like, 6 and 7. So I was like, okay, sure. So I was like, okay, I'll do 6,500. Like that's my absolute top.
And 65 is what you personally were going to put into it?
Yeah, I put in $6,500, and so it came to time to like, okay, like send us an e-transfer so we can start like booking locations, equipment, all this kind of stuff. And in that moment, I was like, okay, this is a lot of freaking dough that I have to cough up. Like, do I really, really, really want to do this thing? And having conversations with Daniel and Chloe, my partner as well. And I was like, okay, like this is a lot of money, and I'm just gonna like commit to it and see what happens. And like the moment I sent an e-transfer for that amount of money, I was like, okay, this is real now. This is a thing. And then from there, it's like, I think as if you want to make your passion projects happen, as soon as you put money down onto the projects, as soon as you book locations, as soon as you reach out to crew saying we're shooting on this day, are you available? That's the moment it becomes real.
Having definitives.
Exactly. So as soon as I did all of those things, I was like, okay, like this is it. There's no pedaling back at this point. The money is already gone.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's giving yourself that accountability.
I think that's huge. I think you're 100% right. Having money down, having these definitives. Without having that, it's all just hypothetical. It's all just a wish. It's all a dream. It's all an idea. But the moment you put something down like that, you have no choice but to continue. So like you put your money down, you're starting to work with this production company. What is that relationship with this production company? Like what were your expectations working with them?
It was pretty much just like, just lay everything down, like book the location, create the call sheets, and reach out to crew, doing all the logistics, the things that I don't want to deal with. I just want to like, direct or tell this story and make this film happen. That's all I want to do.
What was one of the hardest things after you decided, okay, this is real, this is happening? That next step, what was that? What was the next hardest step for you?
Honestly, like the anxiety factor. I'm a really anxious person, and just the anxiety factor of like having a big crew, like of the crew size on the big production day was like 20 to 25 people, but luckily because I had those like foundational years of lighting, I've built all these amazing relationships with like other G&E people that are like so ride or die for me, and I'm like, holy shit, like I can't believe you guys are trusting me to like do this kind of thing. I was like super giddy when we actually got to the shoot day, but like leading up to that, I just remember being like super anxious throughout. And then when it came time to post-production, just that process took such a long time, and just figuring out like all this stuff. Yeah. It was really hard to see it end to end.
See it end to end in the beginning process or towards the end? Like what part of it was hard for you to see end to end?
So like conceptualizing and pre-production, and then shoot, like looking back, the shoot, it went really smoothly because I'm a very organized person. I need a shot list. I need like everything dialed. And then when it came time to post, we cut the film to a piece of music that I like really fell in love with, and I had temp track love. So like I was like, we're not going to find anything that's going to be up to par.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no music licensing service that is going to have something like this, because it was a weird song. So then I was like, okay, I need to go back to the drawing board and I need to find a composer. So I actually found him through TikTok. I posted a TikTok of myself, the beauty of social media. He reached out. He had an amazing portfolio. He was so sick to work with. And then I was like, okay, the piece still feels empty. And I was like, we need to find a singer. And then we found a singer here in Toronto. She's never put out a piece of music just yet. She's just getting into things. And, we both don't know, like she knows how to communicate musically, and I just know how to communicate like on a feelings level. So just like finding that process and just being committed throughout the whole thing, because start to finish, it took like 7 months to get it to the finish line.
When did you write the script? You said you had this idea for like a few years. Did you have the script then, or was it more of just an idea back then?
You know what's funny? The idea actually came to me. I was working on a production as a Spark, and we rented these, like, I don't know if you've ever seen them. They're like these sodium vapor lights, but like they only emit sodium vapor, and like they're not like a colored light. They're these weird lights that you put really high up on a stand, and you could fake them like deep into the background as sodium
Like
vapor lights.
streetlights? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I saw those and I'm like, okay, like what happened to me under a sodium vapor light once? And I'm like, well, I remember being a kid and like trying kickflips on the end of my street late into the night under these, like, a blue sky and sodium vapor lights. So the idea actually stemmed from that experience in that moment on set.
What made you decide not wanting to shoot and direct it? Was that a challenge for you to decide that?
Yes, and it definitely came down to like an ego thing as well, of being
Mm,
like my identity is very much tied into like, no, I want a DP. But I knew, like, I've done that in the past on other projects, DPing and directing, and I knew I would just be stretched way too thin to actually do that and do it properly and do it good. So
mm.
I asked a friend of mine to DP it for me, and he did such a good job.
Yeah, it looks beautiful, man. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Was that your first time working with a DP?
First time working with a DP, yeah.
Yeah.
And that
Well,
was like that was a learning experience for me as well. Cause, I'm, I know what I want lighting wise,
for
because
sure.
I've worked so many years as a Spark, and I come from like a technical background of like specific fixtures and blah, blah, blah. And, there was even some like banter back and forth of like, he used like a IKEA China ball, and he put those like DMG dashes, and I'm like, it was just like unpractical to move around. And I just kept saying, I'm like, dude, why did you choose this lighting fixture? It's just like a pain in the ass. And but no, looking back, like, it looks amazing, and it's just like such a nice quality of light because
Yeah.
that wrap. So
Yeah, I'm curious about this relationship is I have a short film that I wrote last year, and it's still in that dream phase. I haven't committed to it yet, but I've been going back and forth of, do I shoot it also, or do I bring a DP on for this? It when I think about it, it consumes me because I don't know what to do, because I want to shoot it. I really do. But then again, I also want to like fully embrace this trying of something. Like, okay, I've never done a short film. I've never wrote one. I never directed one. Why not fully embrace it and just also try to have a DP on this one as well and see what you could learn from that person? I think that's where I'm leaning. It scares the hell out of me though, a little bit, because I think I'd be
totally,
so
totally.
anal. I think I'd be so anal about it.
I think honestly, if you have that itch, freaking go for it. Like,
Yeah.
if you have that little instinct that's just like, and also it's really tough. Like, if you write something and then you hand it off to a director and you're just like, I just want to DP this. I think it's going to be really tough to see that project through, even in post production. Like, how would that be in post production? Do you work with the editor or edit it yourself,
Right.
or edit it with him?
I'll let you know about this one.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm still
yeah,
sitting on it a little bit. Yeah.
totally.
I think the thing that I don't have any experience with, which is going to be a very difficult challenge, is directing actors, or, in your case, the young boy in this film. What was the biggest hurdle when it came to the actual art of directing this?
So Avery, the kid in the film, he's a first time actor. I saw him at a skate park years ago, and I was like, if I ever, when I shoot my short film and I need a 13-year-old version of myself, it's this kid. So I always kept him in the back of my mind. And I don't even think I ever even talked to him, but like, I just remembered him. And then
Mm,
I messaged him on Instagram, and I was like, hey, I have this short film idea. Because the issue was, like, you needed somebody that could kickflip on demand. Um,
right.
you can't just like hire an actor. So it needed
Because
to
now
be
they
somebody that
actually have to learn how to kickflip or skateboard.
exactly, exactly. And and actually like one of the biggest struggles was the thing with skateboarding is as soon as somebody steps onto their board, you could tell what skill level they're at just by the way that they
For
push,
sure.
the way that they pop their trick, you can see how comfortable they were. So the first day of shooting, we were doing like that like jump cut sequence and I'm just like, fuck, I could tell he's like a good skateboarder just by the way he's like, bending down and flicking. So it was actually like finding it with him to be like, okay, let's try to put your foot up here to make you flick worse and just playing around like that. And then when it came time for like the actual land scene, because he's done hundreds of kickflips. Um,
Mm.
so it was like getting a genuine reaction of him landing. And I had this notion, like all these things that I wanted him to do and stuff like that. And then I was like, okay, I want you to just try it and land it. And however you react, just react like that. And he lands it and he starts running away and like yelling like that. And the whole crew is like holding in their laughter because we were rolling sound. And I just knew like that was just such a genuine reaction. You can't recreate that because he is that 13-year-old kid.
What was the end of the shoot like? You wrapped production. What were you feeling at that moment at the end of it?
I wish I could say it was like a good feeling, but it like I'm sure you feel this way with shooting as well as like you put all this time and energy into the thing and then like it just like shoots they don't like taper off and you like come down from them. It's like you go off a cliff and it's like okay, like what next?
Yeah.
That's your feeling because you're like you love what you do so much and you're so dedicated to it and you put so much of yourself into the project. So it really felt like that. Um, yeah, I wish I could say it was like, I mean, I did have that feeling of like, this is the best thing ever. And I want to do this every single day. Um,
Mm. But luckily, I think for you, because you were directing this, you had post-production to kind of go into. I think the thing that I struggle with sometimes as a DP is the fact that once production is done, most of the time I am done. And that's a
yeah,
good thing and a bad thing. Like commercials, it's cool, but like sometimes, especially on narrative, it's like, man, that's it. Tomorrow it's just not going to be like this. That's
yeah.
it.
I'm curious if you feel this way as a DP as well, but like, do you, when you see the finished, like when you see the finished product, do you wish you were kind of like involved in that, like from a director standpoint?
This is the hard part. I feel like I think because I've done YouTube and like I've created a lot of things on my own, I am fairly proficient in editing. Like sound is one of I love sound. I came from a music background. I have a lot more thoughts than just visual as a DP, which scares me because that to me is an inclination that I have a director mind. And I don't know why it scares me, but I think it's because I put so much of my identity in being a DP and literally being like, this is what I want. I found what I want. This is it. And
Mhm.
as I've gone through life and seen projects and being like, wow, this sucked, like
Yeah,
this could
yeah.
have been good, but the edit was not like this just didn't flow. It didn't, why would you cut here? Like the song choice, the sound design, like those are thoughts in my head a lot of the time. And as a DP, it's disheartening sometimes when you put so much into it and you feel like it really has like meat to it, but it doesn't come to fruition. It makes you question what is it that you really want to do, you know?
Totally, dude.
And
And
yeah,
I think that
you
goes back to like you need to shoot your short film, if that thing happens, you you can either direct and DP it or you can direct it. Because I think if you were to pass that thing off to a director, it's like you'll have that feeling of like this could have been this.
I don't think I'll ever pass it off to a director, especially this one. But it's the balance between directing it and having a DP or directing it and DPing it. But I think going back to what I said, I think I'm more leaning into the opportunity to create something that is completely me, but also challenging myself to be able to work with somebody from a DP perspective that could bring something that I don't have. I don't
Mhm.
know about. Like, I want to. I've thought about shooting it on 35 mil, and I've never shot on 35. So I could learn how to shoot 35 to shoot this and direct it and do and talk about production design and sound, and like, is that too much? Or do I hire a good DP that I really, really love that does 35 all the time?
Mm. Mhm.
That's sort of like where my head is at right now. Yeah, I don't
It's scary.
know.
It's so scary, man. Like
Yeah.
I'm like with you here.
I I don't know. I feel like I've had this conversation with Danny a lot about like, how he thought he was a DP for a while, and then eventually it just kind of got to the point where he needed to create his own things because none of the things that he were creating as a DP ended up becoming that great. Like
Totally.
you put so much trust in other people, and not that other people aren't good or whatever, but you have your own taste. It's more about your
Exactly.
own taste that sometimes doesn't get fulfilled.
And I also think it comes down to a title thing. It's like we're so attached to these titles of like, no, you're Carlo the DP. I'm not gonna direct the thing.
Right.
But I think it's like letting go of that. It's like fuck the titles. Like
Yeah.
just you have this idea. Why not just bring it to fruition and create it? That's what this project was for me. And after that, I'm like, okay, like if people want to call me a director, sure, like that's what I'll put in the credits.
Was there one thing that you could remember was like a compromise that you had to make on set that was like you were really strong about this one thing, but something happened, it didn't work and you had to compromise to find something else?
It was more so like I guess a compromise in post production for
Mm,
so the shoe shot like um I had this idea of like he walks through the door, we see the door open and the camera starts pushing in and then the shoe like changes 3 different times. I pictured it being like a 10 to 15 second thing and then we get to post production, we like try to stretch it for as long as it could possibly go. And keep in mind, this one shot, like took us months in pre-production to discuss what all the 3 lighting changes were. We had 3 different pairs of shoes at 3 different stages of wear. Um, and then when it came time to post-production, we chopped it into like a 3 second shot. And I'm like, it doesn't serve the story to have it be any longer. Like it doesn't need
mm,
to drag. And it was the lesson of, I'm sure you've heard the saying, like, kill your darlings.
yep.
You want this, you have this image of this thing, and when it comes time to post, it's like, well, it doesn't need to be in there. So being okay
With
with
it,
losing that.
right. Were there any other instances where you had to kill things that you really loved? Was it shots or was it length of shots? Was it, like what was it even in, art or production design or anything where you had to really kind of cut things?
Honestly, besides that, like, not really. There's things that I look back at the film now and I'm like, I wish we did that or XYZ
Mm.
or this differently.
The one thing I noticed too was the marketing behind this short film, I think was really interesting. I think that you made a huge effort into not being scared to share this project. I think
Yes.
there's this whole thing online that you post your project once on your Instagram page, your story, maybe a reel, and that's all it gets. You post one and done. If you post twice, then you're pushing it in people's faces. But I think what you did was really you spent 7 months working on a project. Why not put it out there?
Exactly. Exactly. Why not this is what I try to do with all of my projects is like why not try to stretch it as far as it could possibly go with marketing. Look at the 2 best examples from the past 2 years. Anora, they spent the film cost $8 million, but they spent 16 million on the marketing for the film. So the marketing is arguably like more important than the film itself. And
Mm.
then Marty Supreme, I'm sure you've seen a ton of
Oh,
ads for
dude, the
that.
marketing is insane. Just what Timothy is doing on his end. is crazy.
Exactly. So it's like, why would you spend 7 months on a project and post one story about it, one post and one reel? No, I spent, over $7,000 on this project. I'm gonna push it in people's faces. Like, I don't care. And it's
Mm,
like, I, sure, you have your audience of like people that see your stuff, but it reaches new audiences as well, people that haven't seen it. Like, there's a bunch of 40-year-old skateboarders that have commented on the video. And I don't know if they would have seen it if I wasn't like pushing it as hard as I did.
was the marketing behind this part of your initial like concept going into it? Like you were going to like was behind this how you were going to do behind the scenes, some of the videos behind it, some of the reels, the type of reels, was that all pre-planned, or was that sort of found as you started looking through a lot of the footage?
It's a little bit of both. Like have this I have my go-to things that I talk about when I create projects. Like ones that do really well is like you have one where it's like the shot from Cadridge, what we planned on the location scout,
Right.
and then the shot from how it actually looks on set. Um, and it's just coming up with things like, yeah, and just trying to milk it as much as possible and shooting behind the scenes. Like I tell filmmakers that want to grab coffee with me, I'm like, you need to be posting it on social media and documenting the process. People care more about that than the actual film itself.
I know. I know. It's true. What is one thing that you are most proud of about this project, about your journey in pursuing YouTube and just the over the last couple years, what are you most proud of about yourself and what you've been able to do?
Probably just like taking a risk on myself and just really trying to go for it and tune out the outside chatter and even the inside chatter, telling myself people think XYZ of you and just really going for it and creating passion projects and putting money where my mouth is and um, just trying to make this thing happen and reach out to people that I'm scared to reach out to, doing things like that. And I've seen the biggest growth in my career by doing that this year. So or last year.
Mm, amazing. And my last question for you today, love this question, and I love the answers to this question because it changes from person to person. But what did what did success mean to you a couple years ago, and how has that changed to what success means to you now?
Um, success to me before was like very much the title and, you know, being a DP. But now it's really just like, I want to just keep this sustainable and, I want to be behind the camera and creating things for the rest of my life. And that's really what success is for me is like just continuing to do this every single day. Like that. Yeah, that's what it is for me. I'm
Beautiful.
curious to hear yours for you as well.
Yeah. I think success for me for a long time had to do with the title, the financial appearance, how much money you had. Because I think I grew up, where I was taught that, how like money is really important. And obviously it is, but I think that was part of my identity for a while was like how much money I have determines my value and who I am as a person. And I think as I've evolved a little bit and tried to dig a little bit deeper into who I truly am, I think for me, success is being true to what I feel is my calling in life, whether that's DPing, podcasting, being a good husband, hopefully one day being a father, being a good friend, and being open to pursuing the things that I feel called to do in my life and trying to find a sustainable way to balance my personal life, my career. Um, and I think for me, success is trying to continue to find internal peace in what you're doing. Um,
Mm.
I think that's for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you have to go through that process of like achieving the title to notice like I don't know if you've seen Marty. Have you seen Marty Supreme yet?
Not yet. I've been dying to, but not yet.
Do, go watch it because it's like it really resonates with people that are hungry and
Hmm.
want external success, but I won't I mean it doesn't spoil too much of the film, but like he reaches the point of like where he put all of the weight and he's like once I get to this point I've made it, and once he actually gets it he just finds it's like totally empty.
Right.
So it's like you need to
Exactly.
actually get to that point to find that it's like it's empty. And then from there,
Mm,
that's where like the real work starts. Like, what is success? You know, I've
yep.
only started to ask myself these questions last year or this year.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, this is a question that I ask almost everybody on this podcast because it's an important question to me, and it's really interesting to hear people's perspectives based on where they are in their life and their career. And it's given me a lot to process and think about as I answer that question for myself.
totally.
So, Matt, dude, thank you for being here. Where can people find you? Where can people watch your short film? Please share it.
Totally. Thank you so much for having me. Matt Aitia on everything, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all that stuff. So
Amazing. And people can find your short film on your YouTube channel. It is titled Get Up, Try Again.
yes.
Amazing. Hopefully, enjoyed today's episode, everyone. I will see you next time. Peace out.